Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
Donnie and Dolly brought to you by King of Floors and Able Auctions. It is Monday, and all of our guests today are sponsored by Passant Motors. It's the Canada Day sale at Passant all month long. Great promos, lots of savings, and great deals. Check them out online at PassantMotors.com and follow them on Twitter at Passant Motors. We talked earlier about Daily Faceoff and what a great website it is, a great Twitter account it is for any hockey fan out there. Frank Seravalli has made the move to Daily Faceoff recently, and Frank joins us now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. What's going on, boys?
Well, not much. Why the move to Daily Faceoff? Might be obvious, Frank, but why the move to that company?
The opportunity to build something special. I get to, as soon as we wrap up here with all this busyness in the month of July, I get to hire some really cool people, smart people, and build out a team to create some awesome hockey content on a free platform using lots of engaging mediums, including YouTube and live streams, TikTok, all sorts of the new stuff going on in the digital media world where I think everything's heading.
But please tell me, Frank, that Daily Faceoff is going to keep its line combinations.
You know, it's really funny that you asked, because as I was talking to a number of GMs around the league and sort of explaining what's next for me, I said, I'm going to dailyfaceoff.com, and they said, oh, what is that? And then they, as I was on the phone with them, they would plug in the site. They go, oh, I go here all the time because I cheat, and it helps me fill out the board in my office with the line combos. And then, they were like, oh, it's like you're going to put a face to this site that a lot of people use, 200 million people a year. So we're excited to add some content to a site that already has some real value in the hockey world.
I'm so glad you told that story, because in the segment before this one, I was saying, well, I think most people know about this website, but guys like Rick and myself and yourself through the years have gone to this website to look at line combinations, defensive pairings, power play units, and it's really, really valuable. It's nice to see that it's growing, but please do not get rid of those line combinations.
No.
And I'm asking for myself and for NHL head coaches. Hey, just coaches, period. Hey, Frank, what did we learn from Tampa Bay's, what did the rest of the NHL at least learn from Tampa Bay's second straight title?
I just think the power of depth. Everyone knew that, and of course Tampa had a slight advantage, and I say slight tongue-in-cheek, with the salary cap and the way that they were able to massage it a bit with Nikita Kucherov and his LTIR stay. I mean, you look at the way that lineup was packed top to bottom, I don't know that we'll ever see a lineup quite like that again, talking about the pure assembly of talent. Even moving forward here, and this is why I think it'd be unwise to count out Tampa and their chances for a three-peat. They've got the best goalie in the world. They've got the best defenseman in the world, both those things arguably, and one of the best scorers in the world in Nikita Kucherov. I mean, it's difficult to imagine that team being really worse off, even though they have to pluck off a couple pieces due to the salary cap this offseason.
Hey, Frank, you talk to a lot of people. You're one of the top insiders. What are you hearing about the Canucks right now?
It's going to be a busy summer. I think the Canucks are considering lots of different options and avenues to try and make this team better. I think, one of them that's been mentioned, and you guys have talked about it, I'm sure, is, an easy one to start out would kind of be that Jake Virtanen buyout. I think that makes a lot of sense. The goal is to try and free up as much salary cap space as possible. And obviously there's some really important contracts to dole out with Pettersson and Hughes. But, the goal is to really support this team on the back end a lot better than it was last season. And I think that's going to be one of the real clear priorities.
When you wrote the article and you had Virtanen in there's so many buyout candidates in Vancouver, Frank. How did you come to Virtanen? There's Holtby, there's Beagle, there's all these guys.
Erickson.
Why do you think it's Jake?
Well, I mean, in some ways, I guess you could make the argument for Beagle. I don't know that Holtby makes a ton of sense. Like, you need to expose a goalie, and I do actually think that there's a chance that Holtby is expansion fodder for the Kraken, given that he only has 1 year left on his deal, and at 4.3, it's pretty manageable. I mean, everyone points to and wonders about Eriksson, for instance. Like, for me, the contract is buyout proof. I'm sure you've ran the numbers and realized that's the case. I think just from a pure numbers perspective, to shave Virtanen from 2.55 down to 50,000 makes sense. That's not just for the player and his production, but also the way that last season ended for Jake Virtanen being placed on leave for those really serious allegations. So I think for player, for person, it just makes sense to circle Virtanen on the list.
Frank, what are you hearing about Nate Schmidt? A lot of rumors that he wants out of Vancouver and the Canucks are trying to move him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I put him on my trade targets list today. I think no one would question the idea that, for whatever reason, Nate Schmidt wasn't a fit last season with the Canucks, and I always wonder about making really significant judgments based on a COVID year, a team that was ravaged by COVID at a certain point, not having the full experience. I was thinking back to Corey Perry's comments this week and what a positive experience he had in Montreal, and I was thinking, what hit me between the eyes, he said, I'd love to come back and actually experience what Montreal is really like, playing in front of a full Bell Center, being able to experience the city. And, for Nate Schmidt specifically, like, he leaves a situation in Vegas that you probably had to pry him loose from in terms of the emotional connection that he had to that team and that fan base, comes into Canada where the restrictions are obviously a bit more strict, and then goes through the season that he had. I could see why there's a sour taste in his mouth, and of course the Canucks have, publicly, Jim Bennings mentioned it, that whatever reports were out there about Nate Schmidt were false. I just haven't been able to get anyone else closer to the situation to say that, Nate Schmidt specifically wouldn't like a change of scenery. So, I think it's going to be difficult in some ways, given the drop-off in play, given the cap hit, to find the value that the Canucks need in order to pull the trigger and move on from Schmidt. And maybe that's why you end up seeing him come back and see if, that can rebound a bit with the 4 years remaining on his deal.
We're talking with Frank Seravalli from the Daily Faceoff. We understand that Nikita Kucherov is having a real fun time today at the Tampa Bay Lightning Championship Boat Parade.
Do you think they've had some IVs packed along the
Hey, who knows? But Frank, just reading your Twitter account, are you okay with Nikita signing that deal with Bud Light?
No, I love it. Actually, that was the quote that he said in his press conference repeatedly. So I was just simply quoting Mr. Kucherov.
Pierre Maguire has signed on with the Ottawa Senators. He's joining their front office. He's leaving our business to, he was in the hockey business, but to join the Senators. What are the Senators? What is Pierre Maguire thinking?
It's a really interesting front office dynamic now. And I wish I had some popcorn and had the ability to watch what goes on next season and beyond behind the scenes, because you've got Eugene Melnyk at the top. And it's clear, at least from the stories that I've read today, that he's part of the driving force behind bringing on Pierre Maguire. And then you've got Pierre Dorion and Pierre Maguire are three people who are no stranger to opinion, no stranger to telling it like it is. And it's an interesting moment for this franchise just moving forward, because this is a team that I think a lot of people saw was more competitive than they might have imagined. I think moving forward, the Senators are in a great position, but they've got to find a way to break through in what's really going back to now a difficult division. I mean, you look at the Habs in that division and you say, okay, with Boston, Tampa, Florida, Toronto, are the Habs even a lock to make the playoffs next year? And then you've got the next rung of teams below them, Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit. How do you get one of those teams to break through? And that's going to be the really difficult challenge for the Sens moving forward. As much momentum as they head into this season with, is it enough to really break through?
Frank, all the best with the new gig. We really appreciate that, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the show. Take care.
You bet.